So, hello, Annette.
Hello, it's nice to see you.
Just for a moment there. So, welcome to our final interview in the lockdown series, and probably fitting that we finalise the series with interviewing you, because you were very much the inspiration behind doing this series. And I think when we first thought about this and talked about it, I don't think we realised just how rewarding it would be to have the opportunity to interview a number of people that we find special and that mean a lot to us. And there's one person that means more to me than anyone else, and that's you. So I feel quite privileged to be able to interview you. So really, the first question to you is, how has the lockdown affected you?
Well, I have to categorise myself amongst the fortunate in that it's had no really negative effects, and we've been really lucky that we haven't had any tragedies close to us. So we know we've been very lucky. Beyond that, I don't feel I've been badly affected in any other way either, because I have to say there was a lot of it I liked, and that there's luck involved in that, and also where we were already up to. Lockdown has really been has put a lot more focus in, which I didn't think there was room for any more focus, but even more focus on food for us. And we decided we were going to maximize our health wherever possible. And we've just been having the most tremendous fruits and vegetables, anything we could find really, and eating lots and lots of it and loving it. It's been superb. So I've loved that. I've really loved expanding even further the food choices that we've been offering to ourselves. But beyond that, I know you alluded to it in your interview, and it's been the quiet, the peacefulness, the lack of traffic for a while. I found that absolutely beautiful, and so many birds. You could hear so many birds. Whether there were actually more or not, I don't know, but it seemed like it. The flowers, I noticed the flowers more. Everything seemed to be much more alive and vibrant. And to be honest, there was a lot about it I really loved. I didn't obviously love the reason for it. And I know there were things happening in other people's lives that really were more than unfortunate, let's say. But I found it. I also felt actually that to some extent things had caught up with where I wanted to be. I wanted less traffic, and I wanted more nature, and I wanted better food. And that was down to us, but we didn't seem to realize it, that you could expand even more on what we were doing. And it's been wonderful. So a lot of it, I have to say, and I'll apologize to anybody who's offended, but I loved parts of it.
Right. Well, that's great to hear. And yeah, I've very much been part of that with you. And I think what you've said very much chimes with my feelings too. So one of the things that we've both been immersed in over the course of the last almost a year really is a nutrition course. So we started that before the pandemic, and we've been doing it during the pandemic. What's it meant for you to have been involved in this, particularly during this period?
Oh, that's a good question, because when you start off doing something, you have expectations of how it will be. And we had quite high expectations. We'd found this couple some time ago. There's doctors Rick and Karen Dina, who are based in California in the United States, and they're raw and plant food educators, and that's what they're training us to be educators of plant-based food. And I had high expectations because I'd already had some idea of what they did. We'd attended webinars and so on, things that they'd done before. But they far exceeded the expectations that I had. In fact, I think we've talked about this a lot. It's been absolutely superb. I can't believe the amount that we've learned and the expertise with which they've taught us. And I've absolutely loved it. It's been great doing it with you. I know I'm really lucky to actually share this with somebody else. So that's been a big bonus. And I feel so much more confident now and understanding, because I've tried so hard to learn stuff for about the past 20 years, and I did learn a lot, but it's always bits, it's always compromised. Is that one right or is that right? Because those two things conflict, and you can't trust the media necessarily, because it's that whole story of, one week coffee's good for you, the next week it's bad for you. Where do you go with all this? Who do you trust? How do you understand the research? And we've got behind a lot of that now, and it feels really good. And I feel we've got something we can really offer to people. And I really hope that's what we're going to be doing. That's our plan. We want to capitalize on it. We've got something to offer, and the time couldn't be more appropriate. If you think about the whole coronavirus thing, it's had a big impact on how people think about food. But certain people anyway are much more conscious now about where their food comes from and what we do in order to source our food. We know that this virus came from, or we believe it came from a wet market in China, but we've had previous outbreaks of different things, swine flu, SARS, and BSE actually, which originated in the United Kingdom. So none of us is immune from doing things badly, and drawing away from meat, and certainly the production of it that's such a factory conveyor belt type of scenario. That doesn't seem to work either for animals. Clearly, it's not ideal for the environment, and we now know that there are real considerations involving the workers, which haven't been highlighted as much as it has now. So there's a lot really for us to get into, and reasons for us to do it. There's more motivation than ever, I feel.
It's kind of, I suppose, to some degree preempted one of the questions I had, which was what new insights have you gained during this period, if any? And is there anything you'd like to do differently?
Okay. Well, there's one new insight that has nothing to do with me, and it's been really, well, there are a couple of things really. I found it really uplifting that at the start of lockdown in particular, when we were properly locked down, people were really quite lovely to each other. And we experienced that out and about on streets. There was much more smiling to people, and just speaking at a distance. Obviously, people were a little bit afraid, which I've got issues with. But anyway, that's another story. It seemed a shame that people were afraid, but still there was much more. There was care. We kept hearing things on the news and on local news, national news, about things people were doing for other people, and there was finally a coming together. And my goodness, Britain needed that. I'd like to think that had been retained. I'm not sure it has, but it was really good to see that when we were put under pressure, we actually rose to the challenge and became much more caring. I think that really was uplifting. It's also been uplifting to see how many people shared some of our views, some of the things I've already referred to, and actually really enjoyed the peace and quiet. So slowing down, they enjoyed finally getting out on a bicycle in some cases. The waiting lists, there was a waiting list for bicycles. You couldn't get a bicycle quickly. People were cycling. They were walking much more. They were making the most of this time to get out and have some exercise. And I found that really exciting. And also that people now are thinking that they could work from home if they want. Those that want to, and for those that it suits, working from home might be a real option. We might get to ultimately reduce traffic. I know it really seems to have gone up again at the moment. But bear in mind as well, we've been given the message that we're not supposed to be using public transport. So we're in a slightly unusual set of circumstances just at the moment. I think everybody is in their car much more, which is a shame. But maybe that taste of what it was like, what it can be like, will make a difference. And I hope for that. In terms of anything I will do differently, I think really it's more a case of being everything's more intensified for me. I'm more certain about what we do and what we have to offer, and really why we must do it. It's almost a calling now. I hope that sounds okay, but it's something that I can't let go of. So it's intensified that.
Yeah, that's great. And again, you've preempted one of my questions. I guess we're very much in sync here. It was really, what are your hopes for the future, and how do you see your particular role evolving in future?
I'm almost always really, really bad at this question. If you ever interview me for a job, which I think is highly unlikely, and you say, where do you see yourself in 5 or 10 years' time? You'll find my answer impoverished, to say the least. I'm not very good at this, but I do know I want a role, and I do know I want to enable people who want to make changes to make those changes, to make it possible for them. That's where I see myself in the immediate future. And I'm open to where that might take us, because who knows, things change. I mean, goodness knows, we could not have expected what we've just had. So life changes, life puts different directions in your way. So we'll hopefully go with it and not be too fixed on one thing. I know that's a woolly answer, but that's what you're getting.
Okay, so just honing in a little bit on, so one of the areas, of course, that we're both passionate about and involved in is food and nutrition, and we talked about being on the course. Have there been any particular changes that you've implemented in terms of food, of what you eat during this period? And also, are there any changes that you would like to see more generally across the nation, across society as a whole, that you feel that we should be looking at in terms of what and how we eat?
I think changes that I've made, or that we've made, have been relatively modest. I think we've finally got to grips with the idea that if you're eating a large amount of fruits and vegetables, and that's the basis of your diet, not the entire diet, but the basis of it, you do need to eat those fruits and vegetables from a salad serving bowl and not a bowl. We're eating a lot more. And when we started doing that, we were obviously transferring from the small bowls that used to fit everything we used to eat and be full from, and then putting the fruits and vegetables in those bowls and thinking, well, I'm still hungry. How many nuts can I fit in on top of that because I need to fill up, or whatever it was. And that's shifted slightly. But there haven't been big changes during this lockdown period, other than more exciting fruit. I mean, we actually tried the very first day of lockdown. The first full day of lockdown was my birthday, and one of the things I wanted for my birthday was to try a papaya. So we've been eating papaya like every week since then, because we love them so much. So a few more tropical fruits, which hopefully come to us, to Britain on a ship. We try to look into this as much as we can, and hope that they're not flown in. Other than that, the question about everybody else and food, I think it has to change. It's become urgent. And this coronavirus, this is not a tap on the shoulder. This is a slap around the gills. We need to take notice. We need to actually take it on board, understand we're being given messages about how we're not doing things in harmony with the natural world that we belong to. We seem to forget that we're nature. We're part of nature as well. And we need to live in a way that makes that possible. Where most of us are caught in what we've now learnt is the pleasure trap, which is really interesting. And I'd love to get into that at some time, but not now. And getting out of that is such freedom. I know that when we talk about eating fruits and vegetables to the extent we do, people are usually very polite, but you can just see a hint of eye rolling at times. And it's part, and I've known this from a long time ago, especially if people ever said they were vegan. What's that then? But now it's quite different. People are starting to understand more and appreciate it, but are still stuck with the idea that, oh, but I can't do without ... And that may be where we can hopefully come in. We're not going to ever diagnose or prescribe or any of those types of things, but we can guide people towards eating in such a way that a plant-based diet works for them, or a plant-strong diet. That may be relevant too. But it's not up to me to get people to give up meat, but I'd love to see them ease back from it. Yeah. Does that answer the question?
No, well, it does very much so. I think also one of the questions that kind of fits in with any new insights that you've gained are that I wanted to know, are there any personal realizations you've made, things that perhaps may not have occurred to you that relate to you or the way you live during this period? Is there anything that you would do differently now directly as a result of the pandemic that you thought, almost like you had a light bulb moment and you realize, actually, I'm not going to do this anymore that way, I'm going to do this?
Oh my word, there probably are. And yet there's nothing really major, for the simple reason that, and this is one of the reasons lockdown didn't affect us enormously. It didn't really change our lives because we were already doing or not doing things that became the norm for a lot of people once lockdown started. So we already were eating a certain way. We already were walking quite a lot. We already were not using a car because we don't have one. A few things changed. We didn't get to travel maybe as much as we might have done, and we were about to go to London, and that was obviously called off. I can't think of any major thing. I don't think there's anything major. There'll be small things, but they've started to become normal in my consciousness now, and I'm no longer quite as aware of them. What a shame. If I think of anything before the end of the interview, I'll raise my hand.
That's fine. The other question really is how it will affect what you do in terms of your work and what we both do. And obviously this period and how we work is going to be inevitably affected. So have you any ideas as to how you feel that we can get the message across to people effectively in terms of what we do? Because we used to do in-person classes, that kind of thing. Have you thought any more about that? I know we've talked a lot about that, but it would be interesting for others to hear maybe.
Yeah, definitely. That's actually a really good question, and that does. It's not something we've changed yet because we've not had the opportunity to do it. But as you say, we were giving a lot of in-person classes, and that's what I think we both love. We both really enjoy doing that. And for that reason, I in particular, and I don't know, you'd have to say if it was applied to you, I felt a little bit resistant to ever doing anything online. And that's clearly got to change. And I have taken that on board, and the prospect is now more interesting for two reasons. One, it just makes so much sense. Something like plant-based eating is not going to be limited to a small area where you happen to live. It's going to be much more relevant if you can broaden it out and have a bigger audience. Those people, wherever they are, who really respond to you, they're the ones who you want to reach out to. And if you can do that online, well, great. But also, the recipients themselves are more used to this now. I mean, we've heard of some really quite people of well-advanced years, let's say, who've been doing all sorts of wonderful things with technology. We've seen your mum on the video on WhatsApp. I mean, this sort of thing wasn't due to happen, and it has done. So people are much more familiar with it. So a blend of the two will hopefully suit us well and work well for those who we get to work with.
Great, that's fantastic, Annette. Well, I think we've covered most of the questions that I wanted to ask you. Really, all that remains is how can people get in touch with you and Henry and Henry?
The best way is, at the moment in particular, the best way is through the Facebook page, which is Henry and Henry. So hopefully easily found on there, and this is where we're going to be posting this when it's ready. We have a YouTube channel, which this will go on to as well. All of our social media can be accessed through our website, which isn't doing very much at the moment, but it is still there. It's paused, ready to leap back into action. It's pared down at the moment, ready to reform and be regenerated as something new. When we move, hopefully, fingers crossed, in the next couple of months to Germany, which is the plan. So if the website is www.henryandhenryeu.com, and all of the, depending on how you're looking at it, all the icons for the social media are at the top if you're on a computer, and down at the bottom of the menu if you're on a mobile phone, as far as I can tell. So they're the best routes to go to get in touch with us. The email's there as well. It's all there.
Right. Well, thank you very much, Annette, for your time, and I really enjoyed interviewing you. And I'm going to put a stop to this now, and then we'll post it online later.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Bye.